Welcome to the Betting News Network right here on YouTube. That is Sukh Brar, aka Just Sukh. My name is Daniel Collins, aka Sweatpant Jesus on social media. And in this video, we are going to be continuing our series talking about the NFL divisions. We're going to be breaking down two divisions in the AFC and the NFC, getting you guys ready to rock and roll for the 2025-2026 season. Thanks so much for stopping by right here on the channel. This is a perfect opportunity for you, if you like the content, to like and subscribe. We're going to have a lot more content moving into football season, and we have so much available for you already right here on YouTube and on our website at bettingnews.com. You can also go check out the first video that we did in this series, which is the NFC and AFC North. We broke down both of those divisions and got into both of those conferences and how we think that those divisions are going to break down this season. You can go check out that video right here on YouTube, but don't go anywhere because we're going to break down today the East. We're going to go into the NFC East and the AFC East, talk a little bit about both of these divisions, give you guys some transactions that happen for all of these teams in each division, and give you a little bit of an outlook of what each division is going to look like this season, give you the odds on how you can bet on each individual division. Maybe if you have some sprinkles on some long shots that you want to take, give you a little bit of everything. Brought to you by our sponsors at Bet Online. So before we jump into both of these, man, first of all, how's it going? And second of all, football's back. Excited for both of these divisions. What you got to say before we get started?
It's going good, and I know we laughed that the last video was probably the two most elite divisions in football, but when I broke down both of these divisions here, we got maybe 4 or 5 teams that have maybe Super Bowl hopes, or we got some of these bottom half teams trying to complete rebuilds and get into the contention conversation. So these are some good divisions too. I'm excited to do this video with you, my guy.
It's going to be a fun time. Chat, like we said, if you're listening to this video live, let us know in the comments on YouTube what you think about both of these divisions. We probably have a lot of Eagles fans stopping by after your Super Bowl victory to enjoy and rest on that, and then we get ready for the 2025-2026 season. We're recording this on July 23rd. Training camp just got started, and Sukh, football's back, baby. Let's jump into it. Let's go straight into this. We're going to talk about the NFC East. First, let's give you guys the odds for the division. The Eagles at the top of the odds right now, minus 145 to win the division here. The Commanders plus 225 directly following them. Dallas Cowboys looking to bounce back from a bad season last year with Dak Prescott returning, plus 600. And then the Giants at the bottom at plus 3,000. Before we go straight into the Eagles, the defending Super Bowl champions, just kind of outlook of this division as a whole before we kind of target each individual team.
I think there's a potential to be 3 good teams here. And maybe the Giants kind of knock on the door of being decent. That's kind of my outlook for this division.
It's one of those, we just did the AFC North and NFC North divisions, which we both agreed were probably the 2 best divisions in football, which is where we started. And again, go check out that video right here on YouTube if you haven't already. But these divisions are a little more top heavy, but there are some teams, like you mentioned, that made a lot of changes in the offseason that could be kind of frisky this year for either various reasons of bringing in new players and new coaches, or because they're getting guys back from injury. So let's start off with the Super Bowl champs. Like we said, 14-2 last year, just a storybook season, and it ended with a storybook ending by them winning the division, winning the NFC, and then lifting the Lombardi Trophy. The over-under for them this season is set at 11.5. The additions to this team they didn't make a lot of really huge additions to what they were looking at, but Azeez Ojulari came over at the linebacker position, Josh Uche as well, Kalen Granson at the tight end position, Adoree Jackson as a cornerback, Avery Williams, punt returner, and then A.J. Dillon came over from the Packers to bolster up that backfield as well. A couple subtractions, guys that got moved on by other contracts or signed contracts with other teams. Josh Sweat went to the Cardinals. Darius Slay, we talked about that in the AFC North video, joining that Steelers team, and C.J. Gardner-Johnson going down to the AFC South to play with the Texans. I kind of like this team. I begrudgingly did not enjoy them last year. They didn't make any major coaching changes. Nick Sirianni got a contract extension. Jalen Hurts is coming back. Obviously, Saquon Barkley year 2 after that 2,000-yard season. I'm not going to lie to you, man. I think that they're going to be really good once again this year. I have a really strong opinion that this team is going to compete to win another Super Bowl. They didn't lose any major pieces. They didn't lose any major, and I think the additions that they made, Ojulari could be an interesting linebacker to add into this situation. A.J. Dillon could be a nice 1-2 punch with Saquon in the backfield. I think as long as this team stays healthy, they should be right back competing for another Lombardi. What do you think?
I 100% agree with that. Jalen Hurts is a Jordan Brand athlete, and not just that, he has an affinity for Michael Jordan. He loves him as a supreme competitor. So they kind of had an offseason conversation of like, what should they do to repeat? Hurts said that Michael Jordan said everything short of the word repeat. He said it's a blank canvas, it's a new journey. For that reason, Jalen Hurts won't be wearing his Super Bowl ring. He says that his goal this year is the same that it's been every year: be the best him and build on the chemistry. Forget the fact that they won the Super Bowl last year, because they're coming into this season with the fourth hardest strength of schedule. Teams are also going to be coming for their jugular every single week. So this Eagles team has to come prepared, come ready. So forget the fact that you're champs. You got to start once again. And I would agree with you. I think this team will be good. The last time that they had a really hard strength of schedule was when they had the hardest strength of schedule and they lost to Tampa Bay in the divisional round. So I just think that they still went 11-6 that season. This is still going to be an elite squad. We worried about some losses that they had the year prior with Kelsey, but clearly they're a fantastic football team. So let's go Eagles. I know It's Austin is going to be happy when he watches this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's just rinse and repeat once again. Is barring any major injuries, barring any, you're getting Saquon year 2, but he's still in the prime of his career. I don't think he's going to have 2,000 yards rushing once again. But, who knows? We'll see. So A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, obviously Dallas Goedert, a little bit older now, but I think this offense is going to do just fine. The tush push has survived another season, so I think we're going to see them tush pushing once again to a lot of wins in Philadelphia. So let's keep it moving. We are pretty high on the top of this division, but let's go to the team that surprisingly finished second in this division last year, the Washington Commanders. The Washington Commanders, 12-5 last year. The over-under this season is set at 9 and 9.5. Which I think is kind of low. A little bit surprised by that win total. We'll talk about that in a second. Here are some of the additions that this team made in the offseason. Javal Kinlaw came over as a defensive tackle. Jonathan Jones, cornerback. Laramie Tunsil was a huge addition on the left side of that offensive line. Michael Gallup and Deebo Samuel coming into that wide receiver room. Deebo, the bigger name, obviously, but two guys who definitely have dynamic playmaking ability. Subtractions, big name, Jonathan Allen, defensive end, and then Jeremy Chin went on to move on to the Raiders. You've got Jaden Daniels, year 2, looking to make just as big a splash as we saw last season. I like this team once again this year. They're definitely going to be pushing the Eagles at the top of this division. Also, you're coming off the fact that both of these teams in this division competed to represent the NFC in the conference championship game, and obviously the Eagles ended up winning that game. So Commanders want to go straight back there. Not on a storybook run necessarily, but on a little bit more of a planned run. And I think they made some good additions to do just that. So I like this team a lot. I like the 9.5 wins. I do not think we have a sophomore slump from Daniels here. And I think that this team is going to be just as good as we saw last year. What do you think?
I'm a little bit on the other side of it. Not that I doubt on Daniels, because we've talked about this, and I love that Joe Pompliano story about him being on the bleeding edge of technology, playing at a little faster pace, using VR to make football seem slow for him. So Jaden Daniels is definitely a good quarterback, but I don't know. I have to see it before I believe in this team not being a fluke, because they got off to the wrong foot to start this season with the Scary Terry scandal that's going on right now. And honestly, the Washington Commanders, the Washington franchise, they have not been in the playoffs in consecutive seasons until the year I was born in 1992. It's been that long, and they haven't had back-to-back double-digit winning seasons since 91. So I don't know. I have to see this franchise do it, but obviously they've been making some of the moves that they need to be a legit good football team. So I know a lot of the people in the NFL world are really high on this team, but I got to see it to believe it in year 2 for Daniels.
It's going to totally hinge on if Daniels continues to play at an elite high level once again, because we saw him play way above his expectations last year, being a rookie quarterback, obviously, and that took them all the way to the NFC Championship game. But if he plays, even if he's a little bit less good than he was last year, even if he's just semi-elite, this team's still going to be pretty good, just because they've gotten that taste of victory. As you mentioned, we'll close it out talking about this. The Terry McLaurin situation is really weird. I don't understand why they're really dragging their feet on paying this guy the money. He's been there since when this team was not very good over seasons prior. Now that you got your quarterback, he's still in the prime of his career. You got to be careful, Commanders. He might walk out the door, and then you're going to be really kicking yourself with that wide receiver room. So we'll be interested to see how that plays out between now and the start of the regular season. As we record right now, like I said, on July 23rd, he is still not looking like anywhere close to signing an extension with this team. He's not even looking like he's going to report to training camp as well. So we'll see what happens with one of the – I love Scary Terry. I think he's really underrated. I think he's a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL when healthy, and Daniels obviously loves him too. So I think that'd be a huge miss if this drags on any further leading into the regular season. So we'll see if that ends up affecting this team moving forward. Nothing else to say about this one. We can keep it rolling straight into America's team. Everybody loves talking about the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know how much we're going to end up liking talking about them, though, this season. 7-10 last year. Very disappointing campaign, as obviously Dak Prescott's injuries took him down for most of that season. The over-under this year, 7.5, which I think is really interesting from Vegas's perspective on what they think this team can do this year. The additions that they made, name at the top of the list that I made, Dak Prescott is returning. So, I mean, even though it's not an addition, your franchise quarterback, your guy that you feel like can give you the best chance to win and possibly win a Super Bowl in Jerry's world, is returning from that injury. He's looking like he's going to be 100% going into this year, which is going to be massive for this team. They brought in Miles Sanders as well to bolster that backfield. Dante Fowler Jr., defensive end, as well, got brought in. Paris Campbell, wide receiver, got brought in to help give us some more weapons for Dak and obviously give CD some help a little bit in that wide receiver room. And then Kenneth Murray, the athletic linebacker, got brought in as well to help rush the passer. On the subtraction side, DeMarcus Lawrence left and Rico Dowdle left. So that's kind of it in this big time. There was a lot of other transactions that happened, but those were the big names that we thought could maybe make an impact this season one way or the other. I'll start us off. I'm kind of high on this team this year. We talked about it in some of our live shows previously. I think that this team is getting a little bit underrated here. It's hard to say the Cowboys are underrated, but I mean, Dak Prescott, if he has a semi-elite level season, or if he even, he's the highest paid quarterback this season from just how much money he's making this year. So if he earns that paycheck this year and comes back and has a 35 to maybe 40 touchdown season like we've seen him flirt with before, this team could be really good once again. I think 7.5 wins could be just a joke. On the other side of things, though, it's the Cowboys. Maybe one bad injury, one just this team not putting it all together. Once again, Jerry Jones ends up getting in the way. I can see this team floundering in a division that is in trouble. So I'm high on them. I love CeeDee Lamb. I think he was really great last year, even though they were just dealing with worst injury situations, especially on, like the Dak thing, like I mentioned, with Cooper Rush having to start a bunch of games. But I thought CeeDee handled that like a professional and still was really, really good for this team last year in a bad situation. I think they could do the same thing again this year, and I think this team could maybe flirt with winning 10 games. But I'm not going to bet on it necessarily, but I'm pretty high on the Cowboys this year, as chalky as that sounds.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm on kind of not low on them, but I worry about them because they do have the 5th hardest strength of schedule coming into this season. It's going to be tough for them. Obviously, Jerry's world is still a mess with Micah Parsons, and Micah just this morning on July 23rd said, if this is the end, this is the end. So this team continues to shoot itself in the foot, even though they have fantastic talents like CeeDee Lamb. I know me and you both love CeeDee. When he catches the football, that's must-watch TV for both of us. So I don't know, but did you know that this is just their 10th head coach in 65 years? Brian Schottenheimer, whose father is the legend Marty Schottenheimer of the Chargers, and LaDainian Tomlinson. But I don't know how to feel about this team. For every Brian Schottenheimer 10th head coach in 65 years feel-good story that there's a Micah Parsons and Jerry Jones talking mad-ish in a press conference. So I don't know how to feel about this team. You know me, I like to make fun of the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Dallas Cowboys. The media's tough on them. It's a scrutinous thing to do for them, but I will always be lukewarm on this team no matter what.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit there and want to cheer for the Cowboys necessarily because it's the Cowboys, but I just think that they're getting underrated a little bit, and that can be scary based upon they do have talent, and that's something that you always got to be careful with underrating talented teams that underperformed previously. So that's my only point. But
yeah,
let's move on and talk about the last team in this division, which I don't know. We'll see what happens in New York this year. The New York Giants, 3-14 last year, just were atrocious, but they did have some shiny moments, which we'll talk about in a second. The over-under is at 5.5, one of the lowest win totals across all of the NFL this season from the sports books. The additions were massive. Huge list of additions to this team as they had a huge roster turnover one way or the other. Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston got brought in to shore up that quarterback room. It actually came out today on the first day of training camp for the Giants that Russell Wilson will be QB1 for this team. Kind of to be expected at this point. Javon Holland also got brought in as the safety position. Paulson Adebo at the cornerback position. Chauncey Golston, a defensive end. They obviously drafted Abdul Carter, which is going to be really fun to see him and Kayvon Thibodeau go back and forth, and Brian Burns. They've got some nasty pass rushers on this team. Jackson Dart got drafted as well to come in and compete for a quarterback spot, looking to develop him into possibly their quarterback of the future. And then on the subtraction side of things, Jackson Pennick, safety, left. Adoree Jackson, safety or cornerback, he's gone as well. Daniel Jones, obviously, is now a member of the Indianapolis Colts. Azeez Ojulari, we talked about him a little bit earlier. And then Isaiah Simmons is also not with this team anymore either. So lots of turnover for this team is to be expected with the terrible team from last season. Got to turn the roster a little bit. But I know you and I are both a little higher on this team. I don't know if they're going to win 6 to 7 games, but I think that Russell Wilson and Malik Neighbors could have some fun in this offense.
Yeah.
We really like Tyrone Tracy to finish off the
Yeah.
season last year as well at the running back position. I think they've got some weapons. If Brian Daboll can put it all together, this is his best quarterback situation that he's had since he joined this team. I know Russell Wilson gets a lot of flack, but he is an experienced veteran. He has been to Super Bowls. And even though I thought he was pretty good for the Steelers last year, even though they ended up moving on from that situation. So I like this team. Do I think they're going to be good? Not necessarily. Do I think they're going to compete and look better than they did last year? Absolutely. I think Carter, like I mentioned, and I'll tee it off with you. I think Carter, Thibodeau, and Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence on this team are just going to be an absolute total handful to deal with every single day for offensive lines. And if they can win in the trenches and keep games close, who knows? So I really like what they did on that side of the football. They have 3 really, really good pass rushers if Carter hits, which I feel like we all think that Carter's going to be a very good pass rusher in the NFL based on his skill set. So I don't know. I think this team could be fun.
I mean, you took all the words out of my mouth. This might be the most interesting quarterback room in all of the NFL. We got a DeVito still there, Winston still there, and we still got Russell Wilson there. All guys that have made, like the aforementioned 2, have made numerous stops in the last few years. But I'm very interested to see what happens in this team because they were bad at scoring last year. But like you said, Tracy, who was an older rookie, comes into his second year. He had some monster games last year. Obviously, our guy Gretzky thinks Neighbors should be in the conversation for top 3 wide receiver in the league already. So this is another team that I just think is fun, and it caps off a really, really fun division in the NFL. If you're a fan of any of these teams, I think that you have a decent, bright outlook going into this season, even if you are the Giants. And honestly, like you said, you mentioned every name. They have weapons, options, young guys. There's a reason to be optimistic. And even if Russell Wilson doesn't have a good year or Winston doesn't have a good year, it might be good for Jackson Dart, who they moved up to get in that first round. So let's see what happens here for the Giants.
I think this is going to be the turning point in the Brian Daboll experience for the New York Giants, because if with the 3 quarterbacks they have in that room and the fact that Daboll is obviously considered a quarterback type of guy, if they aren't able to get some sort of production from that position this season, I think you then got to think about moving on, regardless of how you feel about Daboll, because I actually like Brian Daboll. I think he's a good coach, but the time is ticking at this point, right? And this is their best situation. You dealt with some horrible quarterback rooms previously, or trying to get the best out of Daniel Jones, which I don't hate Daniel Jones, but just kind of the time ran out. So I think we can agree that this might be the last year. If they start turning the corner, I mean, God forbid they maybe compete for the middle to be 800 or 500 or a little bit higher. That's going to be a win for this team.
Do you think Dart gets in a game this year?
I think if they're bad going into the last month of the season, like, you don't need Russell Wilson trotting out there to try to win you some football games. So at that point, they might then go, we're probably going to be a top 10 pick. Maybe we want to be top 5, throw Dart out there, let him get experience. If they really like what they're seeing in practice and stuff, we'll see what happens. But at that point, you got to just get the best out of your players and also develop in that moment to see what you need going into the draft. So I could see him playing some games later. And how football is, man. Injuries happen. They got 2 guys that are a little bit older. Russell Wilson's obviously has a good longevity, not a huge injury history, but who knows? Jameis Winston is a firecracker, but he could go down, and then then you got to go with Dart. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. Should be a fun team though, and as you mentioned, a very fun division. So see if the Eagles can tackle it once again. But there's a lot of other teams that are going to be knocking on the door to the Super Bowl champions in the NFC East. But on that note, before we jump to the AFC East, one team that you think has going to be the most fun to watch this year in the NFC East?
The last team. I'm interested to see what happens with the Giants. Neighbors is fantastic. Obviously, the Cowboys are an obvious answer. So I think low-key, the Giants could be fun because Russell Wilson throwing some bombs. We saw it a little bit last year. We could see it again.
Oh, for sure. Like you said, with Neighbors, I'm going to go Commanders. I really am interested to see how this team develops another season, if Jaden Daniels is actually him, and if this team has an opportunity to really press the Eagles at the top of this division. It's going to be fun to watch for the NFC East this year. So let's turn the page. Let's talk about the other side of the other conference and talk about the AFC East. Hope you guys are enjoying this video so far. Like we said, if you're watching this on YouTube, give us a like and subscribe to this channel. We'll be going through every single division leading up to the start of the regular season. So if you like this content, follow it. Give us a comment as well, whatever you think of what's going to happen in the NFC and the AFC East as we keep it moving. Now we're going to jump to the AFC side of things. Sukh, we've got the really interesting division this year in this with what we've got going on. Lots of turnover, but we can start with the Bills at the top of the division. These are the odds to win the division, minus 275. Pretty heavy favorites are the Bills here, rightfully so, based on the rest of the teams in this division. The Patriots directly behind them, though, plus 500 to win the division with a lot of turnover. We're going to talk about that in a minute. The Dolphins, the hat on top of your head. If you're just listening, you can now turn to look at Sukh's head to see the teal-colored Dolphin hat on his head. He's not a fan of that team. He just likes that hat. Dolphins plus 700 to win the division. And then at the bottom, the Jets plus 1,400 to win this division too. I mean, I don't have a lot to say before we jump straight into it. I think it's going to be a really interesting division. Should we just jump straight in to talk about the Bills?
Yeah, let's get into it.
All right. The Bills 13-4 last year, obviously went to the AFC Championship game. The over-under for them this season is 11.5 wins. Josh Allen is back after his MVP performance last year, looking to press the buttons once again to get back to glory, most hopefully finally getting to a Super Bowl to possibly win a Super Bowl this year. Added some nice additions to this team. So Joey Bosa comes to town, defensive end. We'll see if he can stay healthy and he can actually make a big-time impact for this team. Larry Ogunjobi also joins the defensive line at the tackle position. Josh Palmer as well. And then Laviska Shenault, which could be pretty interesting to see how that wide receiver plays out. A guy I watched in Jacksonville quite often who has incredible playmaking ability to see if he can put it together in this offense. They drafted Maxwell Hairston, the cornerback, and then they lost Von Miller and Mac Hollins. But that was kind of the only big losses that they had. Another year of Josh Allen not really having a whole bunch of weapons. James Cook took a big step last year. What is your outlook for the Buffalo Bills this year?
Yeah, just like you said, Joey Bosa, he's dealt with injuries, came back last year, played not to what we're used to with him, but he has said in the last 6 weeks with being with the Bills, it's more than he's hung out with any teammates ever in his NFL career. And Bosa is entering his 10th year in the league. So this Bills organization is known already to have a very close-knit group. And I do think that once again, like you said, we haven't seen too much turnover with the roster. Obviously, they did lose some key pieces, but I do think that this team, it's their division to win again. They've been fantastic for the last 4 to 5 years. And I think that Haley Steinfeld's husband, yeah, he doesn't have a lot of options, but I think Josh Palmer, who they added, he's still young, the Canadian kid. I think that Kincaid still can make a leap. Coleman can still make a leap. And Khalil Shakir coming into his 4th year, I think last year, every single fucking time he threw him the ball, it felt like this kid caught it. So I think he could take another leap. And Allen talked about this last year. They're kind of running a offense where everybody eats and he trucks, and Cook takes a leap last year. So now this year, I think that we might see someone else do it. So once again, this is the Bills' division to lose, and I do think that they'll be an elite football team. That defense is still very young with everybody still on the south side of 30, a lot of the key pieces. So excited to watch some Bills games this year.
Yeah, I mean, Josh Allen won an MVP last year for good reason, and I think that he's going to flirt with winning another one this year if he stays healthy. James Cook, like you said, I think that the offensive progression of this team and possibly pushing to win a Super Bowl is going to depend upon the development of Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid. If either one of those guys or both of those guys can take another big step, possibly become top 10 or 15 in either category for those positions this season, the Buffalo Bills could be a real problem. I think they are still already a real problem because they have one of, if not the best quarterback in football on their team. You could argue with a lot of people about that, but it's going to be fun to watch Bills games this year. As you said, we will see if they are the overall favorites to win this division. They should do just that. But the rest of the teams in this division have a storied history. A lot of them are going through a lot of turnovers, as in a lot of turnover on the roster. Let's jump straight to the one that made probably the most change in the entire offseason. The New England Patriots. 4-13 last year, didn't quite have the season they were expecting with their first-year head coach, Gerard Mayo, and he paid for it. He did not end up becoming the second season of head coaching of responsibilities for the New England Patriots this year, but they brought in another old face, a guy that I love very much as a Tennessee Titans fan. Mike Vrabel comes to town. Mike Vrabel will now be the head coach of the New England Patriots. The over-under for this team this season, even after winning 4 games last year, 8.5, which is really interesting. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But as I said, Vrabel came in, Josh McDaniels comes back to be the offensive coordinator. Terrell Williams comes in to be the defensive coordinator. He worked with Mike Vrabel in Tennessee and then obviously went to the Lions as well. So he has a nice, really storied history as not as a defensive coordinator, but as on the defensive side of the football, especially with the defensive line. Stephon Diggs comes to town, even though don't know how you feel about Stephon Diggs at this point in his career, but has been considered an elite wide receiver in the past. Harold Landry comes over from Tennessee as an edge rusher. Carlton Davis, Milton Williams, Robert Spillane comes in as a linebacker in a linebacker room that's going to need a lot of experience to kind of tie with what Vrabel's wanting to do. Matt Collins, we just talked about him leaving the Bills, coming to the Patriots. Austin Hooper and Morgan Moses. Lots of additions for this team. So to get through that list, they also drafted Will Campbell as an offensive tackle. They also drafted Trayvon Henderson, a running back who should be pretty exciting for this team next to Ramondre Stevenson, and then Kyle Williams, the wide receiver as well. The subtractions, there weren't as many. David Andrews retired, the center. Jacoby Brissett is no longer on this team. Dietrich Wise, defensive end, and Jonathan Jones, cornerback, are no longer with this team as well. So short and sweet for me, man. I think this team's going to be fun this year. I think they're going to be fun. Do I think they compete to win the division? I don't know. Probably not. The Bills are really good. But Drake May was awesome last year. He surprised so many people with how good he was. And I mean, I've watched Mike Vrabel for many seasons in Tennessee get the best play out of a really subpar roster. And I think this roster is actually pretty decent. I think that Vrabel's going to bring tenacity. He's going to bring that culture that he brought to Tennessee, which is the reason why the Titans ended up going to AFC Championship games kind of out of nowhere. I think this team's going to be fun this year. I think they're going to be fun to watch, kind of returning back to that Patriots way that we saw with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick lifting all those Super Bowls with Mike Vrabel on some of those teams too. So I think it's going to be fun to watch Patriots football this year. Do I think they compete in this division? I don't know. Like the 8.5 win total, I think I would probably take that over. I think that they could probably win 9 games this year. What do you think?
Third easiest strength of schedule. This team has been, like you like to say, poo-poo caca for a number of years now. And now is the year that we find out if the rebuild is trending in the right direction. Clearly, with parting ways with their coach and bringing in new coaches, they definitely think that they have a little bit of confidence in this roster, and it was just not a fit with the staff. So let's go with high hopes for this Patriots team. Like I said, these are two divisions where like even the bottom dwellers kind of seem like they're tired of being in the basement and they're knocking on that door. And the Patriots, like, they've gone through the Pete Carroll era, the Bill Belichick era, and now it's time to see whose era it's going to be. Is it going to be Drake May turning into an elite quarterback, top 15, top 10? Who knows? But this team is definitely trending in the right direction. If they don't win 7 to 8 games with that third easiest schedule, this is an absolute disaster. Forget about the 8.5 total win total. You want to be floating around 500 after 2 bad years and doing this much roster turnover, this much coaching changes. You have to prove to your fan base and to ownership that you're trending in a positive direction. So it's a big year for Pats and Pats fans.
Just be competitive. Just go out there and be competitive. And again, Mike Vrabel definitely knows how to get teams to be competitive. So I think this team is going to be, like you said, they're going to compete. It's going to be fun to watch Pats games this year. See how they do in this division. Just move it, keep it moving. Go to, as I mentioned, the teal hat on top of Mr. Sukh's head. Miami Dolphins, 8-9 last year. Very disappointing. We obviously saw a lot of that dealing with Tua missing a lot of time last year. The over-under for this team this season, 8.5 wins, right on the nose, right under last year. I don't know if they're going to win 9 games this year. The additions they had, Mika Fitzpatrick obviously came over in that trade, which we'll talk about the subtractions of that in just a second, to play the safety position for this team, who's an elite safety in the NFL. James Daniels comes over to play guard. Nick Westbrook-Akine, a former Titan, comes over to see if he can replicate his performance last year on the bad Titans team. Alexander Madison comes in to help fill the void of Raheem Mostert leaving. Artie Burns, cornerback, who actually also today, I just saw this news before we started recording, it's looking like Artie Burns actually might have torn his ACL in the first day of training camp, which is unfortunate for a guy looking to play some substantial snaps this year. And then Willie Gay, the linebacker, is also joining this team as well. Subtractions, Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith were a part of that Steelers trade to bring Mika Fitzpatrick to town, so they are now with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Teron Armstead is no longer with this team as well. Javon Holland, as I mentioned earlier, with the New York Giants, is going to be the safety for them. And Mostert is now gone in the backfield, so it's Achane and Alexander Madison in the backfield for the Miami Dolphins as Mostert goes to the Ravens. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I think this team's going to be bad this year. I don't think this team's going to be very good. I really don't like this team this year. I think they could flirt with being bottom 5 or bottom 7 in the NFL. And if it starts to go downhill pretty quickly, they might start tanking. Tua is good. I do think that Tua is good, but as we know, Tua could get smacked one time wrong and he's going to miss a month or possibly flirt with retiring once again. Tyreek Hill, who knows what's going to happen with Hill after what he said finishing off the offseason last year. He's also starting to get there in age. He's 31, so maybe it's starting to catch up to him a little bit there too. I don't know. I like Mike McDaniels, and I think that he's good as an offensive mind, and I think that he brings swagger to this team. But I don't know. I just think that this team could possibly be the worst team in this division this year.
I agree with you. They still have not recorded a playoff win since 2000, the longest drought in the NFL. The hat looks good, but the outlook on the team does not. I really do think this team, even with a bottom third strength of schedule, I just don't think that the vibes are right. And, Tyreek's getting older, a lot of media attention, and like, it's just like nothing coming out of this team's camp is like positive. And I just feel like the vibes are wrong. And just historically, this team hasn't been very good. And I think that after 2 to 3 years of them being good, I think that that time might be over. And it kind of shows you that the team brought in Zach Wilson to be the backup because they think that they do need like a little bit of a better backup because you cannot count on Tua. And that's not his fault. His health is not his fault at all. But it just, the reality of the situation is that the outlook on this team is bleak a little bit. In my opinion, I agree with you.
Yeah, as you said, their strength of schedule is not hard, but they have some very losable games on their schedule. So I don't know. I'm not high on this team this year. A little bit higher on the team we're going to talk about next, the New York Jets, going to the other team in the Northeast. Only 5-12 last year. The Aaron Rodgers experience didn't end up playing out for this team last year. The over/under set at 5.5 once again, though. Vegas not really high on what the New York Jets were able to do in the offseason. A bunch of turnover as well for this team, kind of like what we talked about with the Patriots. Aaron Glenn comes over from the Detroit Lions to be the head coach of this team. He hires Tanner Engstrand. First time I've ever said that guy's name out loud. Tanner Engstrand, the offensive coordinator, former pass game coordinator for the Lions. So Glenn gets a guy from that Lions incredible high-paced offense. The passing coordinator comes over to be the offensive coordinator for this Jets team. Steve Wilks is now going to be the defensive coordinator with obviously what he's done with the 49ers in the past. Justin Fields comes to town, takes the reins from Aaron Rodgers. So we'll see what Justin Fields can do with his dynamic playmaking ability, yet sometimes not as much as dynamic as you would like. Josh Reynolds also comes in to catch passes. Josh Myers is going to be the center for this team. Brandon Stevens, cornerback, is also brought in, and Andre Cisco as well joins this team as well. Subtractions, like I mentioned, Aaron Rodgers is no longer with this team. Devontae Adams is a member of the Los Angeles Rams. DJ Reed no longer with this team in the cornerback room. Hassan Reddick as well from the Bucks is going to the Bucks now, which makes you happy. CJ Mosley retired, so shout out to CJ for choosing your quality of life versus wanting to bang your neck around a little more. So, but the Jets will miss you, unfortunately, with how good you have been in your career. And then Javon Kinlaw is also not on this team anymore as well. So I'll kick it off again here too, man. I like this team. I think we're going to win some games this year. I think Justin Fields has an opportunity to be actually pretty good in this offense. I really think Breece Hall has a chance to break out. They paid their two young guys to be their kind of franchise cornerstones moving forward in Sauce Gardner-Johnson and Garrett Wilson. They paid their cornerback. They paid their wide receiver. So we're going to find out what happens with this team. I like this team. I think they're going to be fun. I think they're going to be frisky. Another team that's looking to kind of create a new culture and a new vibe with Glenn leading the way. And I think that they're kind of doing it all the right way. See if it plays out on the field. I like the 5.5. I think they could win 6 or 7 games.
Yeah, I definitely think that they could definitely finish above the Dolphins in this division. Can this team finally be good? You got young stars on both sides of the football. And like you said, first-time OC Tanner Engstrand is very interesting, SPJ. You mentioned that he kind of worked for the Lions and their offense, but he's also bounced around the XFL and was a graduate assistant coach under Jim Harbaugh. When you go check out this guy's Wikipedia or try to figure out who he is, things are very, very limited. So obviously he wowed whoever he needed to wow in that Jets organization to get that job. So I'm of the mind that he definitely might have some packages that are a little exotic that might free up some of these players. So I actually agree with you fully. I think the Dolphins are finished last in this division and the Jets finish above them. And they have the 7th easiest strength of schedule. So they have the schedule makers on their side as well.
Nice. Short and sweet. Before we tap off this video, which team are you looking forward to most to watching in the AFC East this year?
Oh, the Bills. I just think they've always been good. And I know that they don't bring home the bacon and win that Super Bowl, but they are still an elite team. And I just think a guy like Khalil Shakir is going to take another step. And I know Joshua Palmer hasn't really surprised anyone in the NFL or been very good, but he's still only 25. So I'm excited to watch the Bills.
I said the Jets just now because I'm excited about that, but I'm really interested to see what happens in New England this year. I mean, if we see Mike Vrabel really start to assert himself, if Drake May takes another step and turns into flirting with being in the franchise quarterback conversation, I think that we're going to see a lot from this Pats team, good or bad. We'll find out, but they're going to be fun to watch, regardless of how you feel about of them in the past as well. So, well, chat guys, thank you so much for watching this video right here on the Betting News Network on YouTube. Again, we broke down the entire NFC and AFC East in this video. And as a reminder, we've already done the NFC and AFC North. You can go check that out right here on the channel as well. Go follow both of us on social media at Just Sukh, Mr. Sukh Brar, and go follow myself at Sweatpant Jesus. Go follow all of us at Your Betting News. Get involved with our free content at bettingnews.com. We're going to be breaking down a lot more divisional previews, and then we're going to be getting you guys ready to rock and roll going into the regular season as football is right around the corner. You can also tune in to our live shows every single day right here on the Betting News Network, either on YouTube or on Twitch, and get involved with all of our free daily content on all the socials. So, anything else before we get out of here?
No, can't wait for football. 43 days out, boys. Let's go.
Absolutely. You guys came for the winners and you stayed for the vibes. Enjoy the rest of your day wherever you're listening to this, and we hope to catch you on the next one.